So, anime. Before we get started, let me set the stage. See,
when I was a boy,
I grew up watching a lot of Nintendo/video game based anime. Kirby Right Back at Ya, Pokemon, and Sonic X to name a few. I would watch these shows all the time when I was younger. I would scour the depths of YouTube to find full episodes. As a kid, I didn't really think of these as anime. I just saw them as cartoons. As I got older, eventually I lost interest in these shows and moved on to other stuff. It seemed like my anime journey was to end there. But then I came across a certain anime called My Hero Academia. Yeah, I know, but hear me out. See, at the time, I was really into superheroes and comic books. I still am, but that was when I was really getting into them. I watched the series and yeah, I liked it. It wasn't perfect, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. So after that, I ended up checking out a few more anime and came to a shocking conclusion. A lot of anime is actually good. Like, there's definitely some trash ones out there, but there's also some that are genuinely really good. Like some of the best stories I've seen in any media. I've now seen about 15 anime. Not much, I know, but hey, at least it'll make this video easier. So let's take a quick look at each of these anime, and I'll give my thoughts on them. First, let me go over 3 things. 1. This is all just my opinion. This list isn't ranked, by the way. I'm just going in order of when I remember watching them. 2. I watched both sub and dub. I'll let you know what I watched for each anime. I'll also be linking the guest editors in the description. That's right, some parts of this video will be edited by other people. Ain't that something? Anyways, grab your popcorn, grab your lightsabers, and let's swing on into this. I think My Hero Academia is good. It's not perfect, but it's far from being as bad as people say it is. For those who don't know, My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia if you want to sound like a smartass, is a series taking place in a world where 80% of the population has superpowers called quirks. The main character, Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, is not one of them, but then one day he meets his hero All Might, who gives him powers, and he goes on to join the hero school. Will he succeed? Will he learn to be a Boku? See the thrilling conclusion if you decide to check out the series. At the time when I first watched the series, I was really into superhero stories, and I think MHA is a pretty decent one. There's a lot of fun characters, cool action, and some great story arcs too. If anyone's wondering, my favorite characters would probably be Mirio, Bakugo, Aizawa, All Might, and Endeavor. I do have some problems with the series though. The first season was pretty mediocre, and some characters definitely don't get as much love as others. The series also has what I consider to be the worst arc in any anime I've ever seen. But luckily that one is just like an episode and a half. The show is also kind of bad at handling women. Also, me neither. However, even with these flaws, I still have so much love for the series. Season 3 Part 1 had so many moments that had me going nuts, as did a bunch of other arcs, and heck, without it, I wouldn't have gone into all the other anime I've seen. So yeah, thank you MHA. You truly are my hero. Berserk is a silly fun show about Guts and his best friend Griffith. They go on many adventures, meet many characters like a fairy, the local priest, and a horse. Sorry, I just looked over my notes. That is not what the show's about. This is embarrassing. Let's redo that. The story is actually about a lone swordsman named Guts, who goes on a quest to get revenge on his former best friend, and now arch nemesis, Griffith. Berserk has had several adaptations now, including the 1997 series, the 2013 Golden Age trilogy, and the visual equivalent of Garbage. I'll be focusing on the original series for this video. First off, let's just get rid of the flaws. Even though the series does a good job of handling the Golden Age arc, which is one of the best stories ever written, it still cuts out a lot of stuff from the manga, which is still the best version of the story. It's also very apparent that the animation is less than good, which I don't blame the animators for, because have you seen the original manga? Well, I think Berserk 97 lacks in action. It more than makes up for in character writing. Guts is one of the greatest protagonists in any story I've ever seen. His ability to never give up and move forward, even when things get tough, is very inspirational. Just like his counterpart, Griffith is one of the best written antagonists. His downfall and descent into evil was so well done that you both feel bad for him, yet hate him with a passion. Casca is a great love interest and an incredible female lead. She is strong and courageous, but has flaws too. Corcus acts as a good rival, Rickert brings a nice innocence to everything. Pippin's cool. In Judo, he's just great, I love him. Now with all these compliments, you would expect me to say that I'd recommend the series. Well, not entirely. See, as good as Berserk is, it's very hard to get into due to how disturbing it can be. Despite this disturbing nature, I still find Berserk to be a very good series. Next up, we have a very cool anime, Cowboy Bebop. It's very likely that even if you haven't seen any anime, you've probably heard about it due to its popularity. The series follows the lives of a bounty hunting crew aboard a spaceship known as the Bebop. We follow them as they go on many wacky adventures. The series is a bit different than most ones I've watched, due to most of the episodes being more episodic rather than having a big arc connecting them. Don't get me wrong, there is an overarching story, but it's only for like 5 episodes out of the 26 we got. Normally this would annoy me, but honestly, I just like each of these characters so much that I'm fine with just vibing with them. Each one of them, from the cool Spike Spiegel, to the fatherly Jet Black, to the mysterious Faye Valentine, and even the radical Ed, are all such great characters. There's a lot of great episodes in this show, like My Funny Valentine, Pierre Le Fou, and my personal favorite, Mushroom Samba. Overall, even though it's not something I usually find myself getting into, Cowboy Bebop pleasantly surprised me. It's very fun, and jazzy. I need to get this hot take off my chest. Ready? Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is really good. For those who don't know, Fullmetal Alchemist follows the story of 2 brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who go on a search for the Philosopher's Stone to restore their bodies after a failed attempt to resurrect their dead mother using alchemy. I had heard a lot of praise for the show before I saw it. Heck, it was even the top-rated series on the website My Anime List for a time. A lot of people love it, and so do I. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is a series that just keeps getting better the more it goes on. It evolves from just being a simple story of 2 brothers going on a quest, to them getting involved in this government-wide conspiracy, involving so many characters, culminating in a battle to decide the fate of the world. This series probably has the best cast of characters I've seen in any anime. All of them, most of them, could be anyone's favorite character. Ed and Al are great protagonists, and their brotherly bond makes for a very nice dynamic. Roy Mustang, who's possibly my favorite, starts off as a cocky, self-absorbed womanizer who only cares about getting to the top. However, as the series went on, a more caring and protecting Mustang was shown. Ling Yao and Greed's relationship was one of my favorite parts of the show, and Greed in general had one of the best redemption arcs I've ever seen. Von Hohenheim could serve as the protagonist on his own with how interesting his story was. The show also has a great female cast. Winry is so bubbly and passionate that you just can't help but love her. Izumi is probably one of the strongest characters in the show, and she's literally just a housewife! The general of the strongest military is a woman named Olivier Armstrong. Riza, who's probably my favorite of the girls, serves as a great partner to Roy, while also serving as a fantastic character in her own right. The antagonists of the show are also incredible too. Each of the homunculi brings such a nice flavor to the story, and serve as great opponents for the characters. Not to mention the other great antagonists like Scar, Kimberly, and not you! There's just so much to love about this show. The characters, the world building, the action, the drama, practically everything is perfect. Now, with all this praise I'm giving to Brotherhood, you're probably expecting me to say that 2003 was terrible and a bad adaptation because it's not completely manga accurate. And yes, compared to Brotherhood, it's not as perfect in my opinion, but it's still really good. For those who don't know, Fullmetal Alchemist was originally adapted into a 2003 anime that was half accurate to the original source material, and the other half was completely original to the anime. While I still prefer Brotherhood, I still think 2003 ended up doing something better. First off, the start of the show works much more smooth, and some characters were even handled greater, like Lust for example. The show also has a much more dark tone. It helps you remember that despite Edward being a prodigy and one of the greatest alchemists, he's still a kid. There are some more issues with it, such as Wrath being annoying, the endings were falling apart, and yeah, I can't think of anything else. Now, if you're wondering which series you should watch, I think it all depends on what you prefer. If you want a series that's more character focused and has a much darker tone, I'd recommend the 2003 series. If you want a much grander story with a much bigger scope and world building, I'd recommend Brotherhood. Still, I think no matter what you choose, you'll fall in love with the story of the Elric brothers, just like I did. I wasn't looking forward to this. I wasn't the biggest fan of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Hear me out. Before you click off the video, I did not hate Evangelion. I'd still probably give it a 7 out of 10. However, I did not see it as much of a masterpiece as everyone else. Let me first start off by giving off some positives. I think the lore and story is very interesting. The Avas and the Angels bring a very eerie psychological horror aspect to the series, plus the music is very swag. However, even with a solid story and good lore, there are some issues I have. First off, the characters. Shinji is not a protagonist that I particularly like. His arc of going from a mentally unstable teen to an even more mentally unstable teen is just not that interesting to me. I will say, his voice actress did a really good job, especially with the screams. I'm also not too big on Asuka either. She mostly just annoyed me with how she treated Shinji and everyone else. And then there's Rei. She's also here. I do like some of the adults like Misato and Kaji though. Also, the penguin is very funny. I will admit, even though I'm not the biggest fan myself, I can still appreciate Evangelion, and I have a lot of respect for it. I also feel like since this was the first mecha anime I watched, I probably didn't get a lot of the satire and tropes it was deconstructing. Once again, sorry to any Evangelion fans if I've insulted you. Believe me, that's the last thing I wanted. But luckily, I have a lot more positives to say about the next anime. Yeah, Vinland Saga! Let's go! I love Vinland Saga! Vinland Sweep! Vinland Saga follows the fictional recreation of the story of Thorfinn Karlsefni and his journey from a violent teenager to a pacifistic young man and his journey to find Vinland, which is now known as Canada. So far, the anime has had 2 seasons, adapting the first 2 arcs, those being the War Arc, aka the Prologue, and the Slave Arc, which is also known in the fandom as Farmland Saga. Season 1 focuses on a young Thorfinn working for a mercenary band led by Askeladd, the person responsible for killing someone Thorfinn loved. Thorfinn joins Askeladd's band, hoping to eventually duel and kill him. The season focuses on the war between England and Denmark back in 1013 AD, and Thorfinn's experiences in it. The cool thing about Vinland Saga is that for the most part, it's pretty accurate to history. Most of the characters were based on real people, including Thorfinn, Leif Erikson, and Canute. Surprisingly, Askeladd was not one of them, even though he was sort of based off of a character from Icelandic mythology called Olaf the Peacock. The reason why it surprises me that he's the most fictional is that in Season 1, he feels the most real. There's so much depth and complexity to his character that he feels like he'd be a real person. Now, with how much I've praised Season 1, you're probably expecting me to say that Season 2 was bad because there was barely any action. Well, sorry to say, you're wrong. Vinland Saga Season 2 was absolute peak. Despite the lack of action, I felt the characters were interesting enough that I wasn't bored. Seeing Thorfinn deal with PTSD and grow as a character made him feel much more fleshed out, rather than just keep him as the edgy protagonist who just kills people. Also, for anyone complaining that the show isn't about war anymore, bro, the story of Vinland Saga is literally about finding a place where war and slavery doesn't exist. Like, what were you expecting? Vinland Saga, in my opinion, might be the best anime I've watched. It's not my favorite, no, but in terms of storytelling and overall quality, I think it's the one I'm most impressed with. It's just a really good story. One of the best I've ever had the pleasure of getting into. Death Note is a show about a teenager named Light Yagami who finds a book called the Death Note, which allows him to kill people by writing their names. Ooh, spooky. With this new weapon, Light takes up the codename Kira and vows to kill any and all criminals with the Death Note. However, a man named L seeks to stop Kira's murder spree and take down the wannabe god. This leads to a mental battle between Light, who seeks to kill L, and L, who seeks to arrest Light for his crimes. The relationship between L and Light is the main focus of the show, and in my opinion, its best aspect. I found myself getting very fascinated by them trying to outsmart each other. I kept wanting to see what would happen next and who would get the upper hand. The other characters are okay in my opinion. I liked Matsuda, but that's probably just because he has the same English VA as Kai from Ninjago. Misa was fine. She could be annoying at some points, but she wasn't completely horrible. And there's also Ryuk. I love Ryuk, he's so silly. He likes Mario Golf. The show also has a phenomenal soundtrack that really adds to the dark tone in the show. The direction and color work are also great factors to making this an amazing show. So yeah, this is a great 25 episode anime that I highly What? What do you mean there's 12 episodes left? Oh, that's right. Part 2 is less good than Part 1. It's not terrible, but compared to how good those first 2 episodes are, it's sort of a letdown. After a certain character left the show lost its footing, and who they got to replace them didn't have the same charisma. I didn't completely hate the second half, but I just felt like it didn't have the same charm as the first. Overall, a pretty good show that's dragged down by a lacking second half. I'm going to keep this brief because I don't want to give anything away. Basically, Attack on Titan takes place in a world where humanity is under attack from giant man-eating monsters called Titans. Eren Yeager, our protagonist, vows to kill them. That's it. That's all I'm telling you. Trust me, I don't want to give you any details because this is a series that rewards you for going in blind. There's so many twists and turns that it's almost impossible to guess where the story will go next. I will, however, quickly mention some non-spoiler elements. First off, the animation is phenomenal. Both WIT Studio and MAPPA did a great job with the direction and animation work. Everything for the most part looks so smooth and flows greatly. The characters and plot are also great too. There's so much depth to the story. I've rewatched the show 2 times and I'm still finding new things. If you can, please check out Attack on Titan. I'm sure you've heard a lot of praise for it. And let me tell you, that praise is 100% justified. The Taitami Galaxy is one of the most interesting and unique series I've ever seen. For those who don't know, which is probably all of you, as I only know one other guy who knows about this show, Taitami Galaxy is about an unnamed university student who reflects on his college life and what would happen if he chose different scenarios. The show has a sort of what-if type vibe to it. Each episode takes place in a different universe. One episode will focus on our main character joining a film club, another will focus on him joining a sport, and some others will focus on him trying to decide who to date. The show is weird, but in the best way. It's got a very unique art style. I love how it blends animation with real-life backgrounds. The series only had a few episodes, about 11, so it's a pretty easy watch. There's also a sequel movie called The Taitami Time Machine Blues, which I haven't seen at the time of writing this, but I hear it might be pretty good. I don't really have too much to say about this anime, not because I don't care about it, I just don't know how to express my feelings about it. Taitami Galaxy is so distinct from everything else I've seen, and I think it's something that you need to see for yourself in order to see just how special it truly is. For anyone who doesn't know, this series follows a kid named Shigeo Kageyama, also known as Mob, a psychic who's under the apprenticeship of Reigen Arataka, a man who claims to be a psychic despite the fact that he has no powers. What started out like a seemingly goofy, silly show about people with psychic powers eventually evolved into one of the most heartfelt stories I've ever seen. There's just so much to love about this show. Every character is likable, the stories are great, and the animation is top tier. Seriously, this might be some of the best animation I've seen in any piece of media. The passion in this show is just on a whole other level. Every voice actor, animator, and the entire cast and crew brings so much to this series. It feels like they really cared about the story. Heck, all 3 of the openings are sung by the entire cast and crew themselves. That's awesome! I would love to talk so much more about Mob Psycho, but now is not the time. I have so much praise for this series, but I want to save that praise for when the time is right. Please watch Mob Psycho 100, especially because my future review will definitely have spoilers. I can confirm Mob Psycho 100 is 100% cinema. I absolutely love Scott Pilgrim. I love the comics, and I also love the TV show. I had to rewatch it a second time to really get my thoughts together, since the series took such a different direction than what I was expecting. I don't really want to get into the whole story because, well, it's sort of a spoiler. The first episode literally ends on a plot twist that changes the entire story from what was originally done in the comics and the movie. So quick thoughts. Pretty much all the characters are great, the writing is still witty and really funny, and there's even Wallace Wells. I love Wallace. So yeah, if you like Scott Pilgrim, I highly recommend checking out this series. It's only got 8 episodes so far, so it's not too much of a struggle. Jujutsu Kaisen, or as some people call it, Sorcery Fight, I'm just kidding, no one calls it that, is about a boy named Yuji Itadori, who eats the finger of the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna, in order to gain powers. After this, he now shares a body with the King of Curses. However, the strongest sorcerer in the world, Satoru Gojo, promises to train him and enrolls Itadori in Jujutsu High, where he'll learn to master his powers and eventually kill the King of Curses. This show is mean. Like, you know how some anime gives spoilers in the opening? This one gives fake spoilers, giving you hopes of happiness, only to crush your heart. Note to self, try not to have favorite characters. Chances are you won't be happy by the end. Speaking of characters, my favorites are Nanami, Todo, Yuji, Shoso, and Gojo. I love Nanami because he feels like a man who's been around and has tons of experience in the world. Todo is just hilarious, and he and Yuji make for an amazing duo. Yuji's a really charming protagonist. Shoso just keeps getting more interesting for me, especially with his relation to the other character going forward. And Gojo, I mean, come on, he's Gojo. What? What do you mean hypocrite? Bruh. The story's also pretty good too. Season 1 was pretty decent stuff, but Season 2 really picked up the pace, and in my opinion, I think this is one of the best seasons of anime I've seen. I also can't help but mention the animation of this show. Pretty much everything looks great, especially the backgrounds. It all looks really cool. So yeah, I really like the Jujutsu and the Kaisen. It's not completely perfect, but I still enjoyed it. Kaiju number 8 is the worst anime that I've seen. So far, it's still like a 7 or 6 out of 10. It's kind of nice that I've seen so many good series. Anyways, Kaiju number 8 is about a man named Kafka Hibino, who gets infected by a parasitic kaiju, which, if you don't know, that means like monster in Japanese, and now has the ability to transform into one, and he joins the defense force to fight against the monsters that threaten his home. The reason it's at the bottom for me is because, well, it's only had 1 season so far, which just came out this year, so compared to the other stuff I've seen, it's a bit lackluster, but hey, maybe the future seasons will improve. To be fair, there are a lot of great aspects about this series. Kafka's kaiju form is a sick design, and every time he transforms is very swag. The other characters are nice too. It's cool that there's no unlikable characters. The opening and ending are very nice too. I still cannot believe they got the One Republic to do the ending song. That's nuts. Anyways, my good friend Creeper from the YouTube channel Communist Creeper also watched the anime. Let's hear his thoughts on it.
Hey everyone, Creepy here. So I have been asked to talk about Kaiju number 8, mostly because I'm a huge fan of Kaiju media. I am currently sitting right next to a poster of Godzilla x Kong, the New Empire, because that's how much I love Kaiju movies and other types of media. Now I'm taking my precious Dead by Daylight playing time to talk to you guys about this, so you guys better like and subscribe to Spooda Jedi. If you don't, a bug will go inside of you and you will become a kaiju. I want to talk about 2 interesting things about this show. Now, these are 2 random things that are important to me personally. I don't know if you will personally like them. Kaiju number 8 follows the story of Kafka Hibino. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I have a speech impediment, so I have an excuse. And basically, he cleans up after kaijus, and he works for the government cleaning them up, and his childhood best friend is a relatively high-ranking member of the government agency that kills kaijus. So he's a low-ranking official while she's a high-ranking official, so he kind of wants to move up in the world to try to prove to her that he's not a complete and total loser. And of course, at the end of episode 1, he swallows a bug, or it goes into him, it's kind of weird, and then he becomes a kaiju. That's the basic premise of it. One could say he had a metamorphosis. Now, I'm going to talk about the 2 interesting things that I personally find interesting. The first thing is that his name is Kafka, which you might not care about that at all. but that's the name of the author who wrote The Metamorphosis, which is an infamous book about a man who turns into a bug and his family abuses him and then lets him die. Personally, I've read that book with a friend before, and we absolutely hate that book, so it's become a running gag to talk about that book, so having the character named after the author really stood out to me. The second interesting thing is the fact that they use kaiju correctly. Kaiju in the West is usually used for any giant monster, but in reality, kaiju just means a strange beast or monster, so it doesn't matter the size. So technically giant kaijus are called Daikaiju, but kaiju number 8 is human sized, yet he's still referred to as a kaiju because he's still a kaiju. I think that's really interesting, and I would recommend checking out this series. I know Spooter says it's just okay, but he could shut up. I love kaiju so much.
And now, we reach the final anime that I've watched so far at the time of writing this, Naruto. Chances are, you've probably heard of this anime. It's quite popular. To give some more context, I wanted to watch one of the big 3 anime, that being One Piece, Bleach, and of course, Naruto. And the latter of the 3 is what I decided on. Sorry to all One Piece and Bleach fans, I like ninjas. Anyways, Naruto is about a kid named Naruto who wants to become the Hokage, the leader of the Leaf Village, because everyone hates him for certain reasons beyond his control. Seriously, these guys are jerks. The series focuses on him becoming a ninja and fighting many opponents, like the slithery Orochimaru, the sinister Akatsuki, and worst of all, an ostrich. Now, how am I enjoying the series so far? Well, it's not perfect. There's a ton of flaws with the pacing, certain characters getting worse treatment than others, and some other stuff. Still, even though it has flaws, I've been having a lot of fun with Naruto. I keep finding myself wanting to see where his story will go next, and what adventures Naruto will go on. Even though not every character is great, there are some I adore, like Tsunade, Gaara, Naruto, Kakashi, and Shikamaru, who's my favorite. He'll also be the star of my next video, which will come out next month. All the antagonists are very cool too. Each one of them is unique and different from the last, and they serve as such interesting opponents. I would say my favorites, but chances are, they're probably the same as everyone else. Also, for anyone wondering, I'm skipping all the fillers. You guys know that you can do that, right? Overall, even with its flaws, I've been very much enjoying the story of this little knuckle-headed ninja. So there you have it, all the anime I've watched so far. I'm also currently watching Monster, which I'm really liking, but I didn't want to put it in the video since I'm not too far into it to really give a fair review. There's also a bunch of other anime I want to watch, like these guys. There's a few others too, but these few are top priority for me. Anyways, you're probably asking, Spooter, all these anime sound great, but where should I start? Well, I have 4 suggestions for you. Now, you may be expecting me to just say my favorites, but what I like best might not be what you like best. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first recommendation I have is Attack on Titan. I've known a lot of people, including my little brother, who aren't into anime, who then watched the show and ended up loving it. The second recommendation is Death Note. I think this is a great starting place for new anime fans. The story's not complex, but it's interesting enough to keep you hooked, plus it's not too long. Next, we have the Studio Ghibli movies. There's a ton of these, and pretty much each one of them is different from the last, and most of them, not these two, are pretty good. Finally, my number 1 recommendation for new anime fans is whatever the hell you want. Hear me out. No one told me to watch My Hero Academia. I didn't watch any videos telling me I needed to check it out. I just did so out of my own fascination for superheroes. From there, I got introduced to a whole new world of stories. So, moral of the story, don't be afraid to check out new stuff. If an anime looks interesting to you, give it a shot. Don't shy away from stuff just because it's a style you aren't too accustomed to. Who knows, you could find yourself lost in a brand new world of wonder. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, stay spectacular.